I do wonder if we're being set up for another attack on free speech here, or at the very least an attack upon the right to protest, because following the awful atrocity at the synagogue, we obviously had, following that, the Palestine marches, which lots of people said should not have taken place. And thus, a lot of people felt intimidated. And thus, now we have Shabana Mahmood talking about strengthening the legislation to grant police more powers to put in conditions on repeat protests so they can shut those down, or at the very least put conditions on them so that they can't go ahead. Now, there is already a group of laws and powers that allow the police to do various things of this nature. There are already powers to require that notice must be given. The police can put conditions on any such protests, such as restrictions on the route, the numbers, the start time, the duration, the place, reasonable behavior, or if they see that they're causing serious disruption or serious harm, they can put in place dispersal powers. There are arrest powers and all sorts of things. But allow me to show you this, because there is a stark contradiction in what is being shown now and what has been said previously. So whilst I show you this video, please do subscribe to the channel. I know I ask. If I don't ask, people don't subscribe. That's been proven in statistics. So please do that. I'll be very grateful. Let's take a listen to this. I'm not going to play all of it. You can go and watch all of it, but I'm specifically interested in this last section here. Watch.
It's been clear to me in conversations in the last couple of days that there is a gap in the law and there is an inconsistency of practice. So I'll be taking measures immediately to put that right. And I will be reviewing our wider protest legislation as well, to make sure the arrangements we have can meet the scale of the challenge that we face, which is protecting the right to protest, but ensuring that our communities can go about their daily business without feeling intimidated, and also that public order can be maintained.
So maintaining the right to protest, whilst at the same time ensuring that people don't feel intimidated and people can, I quote, go about their daily business. So literally going about their business. Now, this clip has circulated quite widely, because this is where Shabana Mahmood herself attended a protest outside Sainsbury's, which resulted in them shutting the doors and, speaking of going about daily business, literally stopped doing business as a result of the protests. Now, people can argue about the fundamentals and the reasons and the wherefores and why that actually happened and why they did that. The net result is it shut down business. So again, watch for the contradiction.
I'm just here. It's Saturday afternoon. A peaceful protest outside of a Sainsbury's store here in central Birmingham. And it's 3:30 and the store has actually just shut as a result of the peaceful protest. That's about 4.5 hours worth of business that Sainsbury's is losing for supporting goods from the Israeli settlements, which are...
So it's 3-something in the afternoon. They've closed as a result of the, quote, peaceful protest because of supporting essentially Israeli products, and thus losing hours of business as a result of this peaceful protest. Now, that is quite literally stopping people going about their daily business. And so I do wonder whether these new powers and conditions are going to be targeted across the board at everybody, or whether there's going to be an excuse now, as some have noted, to bring this back to other sort of protests, such as those that they saw outside hotels in Epping, for example, whether they'll be equally applied across the board, or whether it's going to be focused on one group or another. Now, I would like to say that my gut instinct about Shabana Mahmood is that she's going to be tough and strong in her new position, and she's going to speak out for what is right and laws that should support communities and so on. That certainly, and I make this comparison here and this contradiction as a positive, not to attack Shabana Mahmood here. So please don't misunderstand me here. Whilst it is a stark contradiction, I think I would take that as a positive, and I would put that to you as a positive, because it is quite clear that on the one hand, in the previous video, which you saw second, she's at a protest which was stopping businesses doing business, thus quite literally stopping people going about their daily business. But in the current video, the new video, which I believe was released yesterday, saying that she's going to put in strengthened powers that grant the police new powers to put in conditions on, the emphasis is on repeat protests. Now, that could, if it is, therefore should be applied equally to both types of protests, those that are, say, against migrant hotels being in operation, and for those Palestine marches in operation. Again, I'm not looking at the underlying causes here, whether you believe those causes. That's completely irrelevant to firstly, the right to protest, and then whether or not it is right that they cause disruptions to daily business. Now, as I mentioned, the police have already a broad spectrum of powers to stop serious disruption. They can make serious disruption prevention orders, which can ban certain individuals from attending protests, similar to sort of an ASBO-style injunction. That's coupled together with, as I mentioned, the advance notice required, conditions that can be placed upon these, dispersal powers, arrest powers. Everything under the Public Order Act comes into play. Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, the Highways Act, Serious Organised Crime and Police Act. These powers remain for areas such as designated secure sites like around Parliament and royal premises and so on. And of course, the Police Crime and Sentencing Courts Act 2022 already expanded those powers under the public order legislation, allowing those restrictions on serious disruption from noise and impact by small groups, and remove the distinction between the static and moving protests and various other things. And so there are already a broad spectrum of powers available here. So the first question is, why are these not already being used more than they are? Because there are clearly a lot of protests going on, causing serious disruption, people would genuinely argue. And is it going to be used fairly if these are strengthened moving forward? I think that is a very genuine concern and a genuine question, because you can see why people complain about two-tier application of justice and policing and so on when you have Lucy Connolly, who was twice denied bail just for posting something online. She never physically went anywhere or did anything, whereas this other guy who was responsible for this grotesque terrorist attack was at the time on bail for rape, and then of course went on to commit a vile act of terrorism. So you can't really blame people for thinking that certain aspects of our justice system are applied differently to different people. Now, there are reasons for it, which I can explain to you. Doesn't mean I agree with those reasons, but I can explain the reasons, and the reasons are quite simply that they're very different offenses, different scenarios, different setup. And so there's a whole lot of different factors that come into play when making those decisions. So that's the explanation. Not that I agree with it, but that's the explanation of why these things can be applied differently in different situations, because they are very different situations, and you have different judges applying a different set of facts and circumstances, laws, procedures, guidelines, and so on. So all of these things can result in what you might think of as a very unfair two-tier result. And so this is something where law is really going to unfold before your eyes in the next weeks and months with regard to protest and the right to lawful, peaceful protest, the freedom of expression, and so on, and whether or not these laws will be applied equally and fairly. So we will watch with bated breath to see what happens. I'll let you know what I think as it happens. And if you want to know how our government is wasting countless tens of millions of pounds whilst our own country and police forces are suffering underfunding, watch my money channel video, as I call it, my Daniel Shensmith YouTube channel video linked down below, because that will blow your mind. And with that, I thank you for watching.